It's the opening morning of the Iowa first shotgun season. I got in fairly late last night. Didn't really have a chance to lay eyes on the land when it was still light out. But just basically used the maps and the e-scouting that I've done and just drew a little route to get back into this area that I'm at now. So I basically just came in here blind in the dark. Getting into this place in the morning, I did hear a few deer up on the ridge tops. Couple shots so far I've heard. So as you can hear, there's a deer drive going on around me. They keep yelling, so at least I know where they're at. They just shot at one. That seems like kind of what they're doing. It almost seems like there's definitely still opportunity for deer to slip through the cracks as thick as it is in here. So doesn't really give me too much advantage to move, I don't think, at this point. Might as well just set it out, wait till they're done. Well, things have settled pretty much back down to normal now. I only heard one shot from those guys, so they didn't shoot much for a deer drive, at least what I'm used to from Wisconsin or Minnesota. But what was interesting and kind of surprising to me is the direction they did it. Usually in the hilly country, what I'm familiar with seeing is guys looking up on the points around like a big drainage, and then they have standers sit down in the middle, and everybody will coordinate just a big push down off the points, and then the deer run down the spines of those ridges and then collect in the bottom where the standers are. But it seemed like what these guys did was they almost just they each like pick a point and would like push up. What it sounded like from what they were yelling, they had guys maybe up on another private field. They came in from private. That's how they got that direction. Because I had access from the other way, going up and down a couple ravines. And that's always something you can't really predict. You can never really predict on public how guys could or which guys could access from the private and get into spots that are otherwise remote if you're looking at it from the perspective of the public access. So my plan did technically still work somewhat because I had those 3 does come by. I'm almost certain that they got pushed originally from those people walking in. Given the way that this thing got pushed out kind of from the bottom up, and then also I didn't really see a ton of big buck sign in here. I mean, like a little bit, but not a lot. And it's not like I'm being super picky on a really short trip like this, but it would be a confidence boost to get into a drainage and just have it tore up with big buck sign. So I think what I'll do now is I'll just get my stuff together and I'll kind of slowly work my way back out of this area, get back to the truck and drive to one of these other areas that he scouted. Got just about 2 hours of light left. I moved into a different area. What was really interesting is each parking lot that I drove past had like one, sometimes no vehicles in it. And one of the vehicles that I saw in a parking lot, the guy, you could see him hunting 200 yards from the road. Definitely seemed like this morning there must not have been that much pressure from the actual parking lot on public, but definitely a lot more pressure from the private land people bordering the public. And in the place I'm in right now, it could potentially be the case too. There's only one other vehicle in the lot when I pulled in, so you see out in front of me here, we got something a little bit different. It's just thicker cover, knee-high to waist-high cover. So the areas of a little higher stem count. And even though the ground is frozen, there's a lot of tracks. And so it's tough to age them exactly, but this is definitely the type of an area where you can walk through it and you can kick up a deer 50 yards away and never get a shot at it. So this could be one of those areas where they feel a little bit safer. Got a bunch of points around me the deer could drop down in, or they could be bedded right in this area. You know, they could get up and just start moving in this stuff. That's the hope anyway. I did like the amount of just kind of general deer traffic it looks like comes through this area. I like how it's thick. I can't see as far, but that should be a good thing. It's tough to say exactly how much pressure this area is getting. I mean, if it's not getting pressure that hard, there still could be a lot of movement up high, even if it's more open. There is access to the hilltop side of this place. So the hope is, from a deer movement perspective, if people are up high and they kick deer out of their beds as they get up and walk around, then they'll make their way down here. But if we don't get that pressure, then they might not necessarily feel the need to do that. So this morning I came up an old creek drainage to get into a thermal hub type area where we got multiple points dropping down that all kind of collect into this drainage. And up above those, there's a couple different parking lots and a road system and field tops, so people could park there and access pretty easily from the tops. I haven't seen a deer funnel through here yet. When it was still dark out, I could hear one blowing way up on top of the hill, long ways away from something else, I'm sure. The problem with trying to get close to bedding in this type of big hill country is that there's so many places where they could bed and have great visibility advantages to where I wouldn't be able to get close enough even to get within shotgun range, really, for them to slip out. They could also be bedding in those thicker creek bottom type areas like what I hunted last night. So I got up and just slowly started slipping just around the corner here to get a little bit better position. No sooner had I just crossed over this little lip and I could see another hunter. Probably was about 150 yards from where I was originally set up, but we couldn't see each other. Obviously both attempting to do the same thing. He must have came in from the top side and walked down, which I would think is not ideal for that type of scenario, but hunting pressure is not necessarily a bad thing, but I'd much prefer that the other guys are up and walking around. Other guys just sitting in one location doesn't really help much. On my way out of that spot, I did end up seeing one doe. A couple other guys I saw coming up the access trail kicked her up. I ended up seeing just a couple more hunters sitting pretty close to the access trail. Kind of not what I expected. It almost reminds me more of like a late muzzleloader hunt than it does an opening a firearms hunt. What I decided to do is basically treat it as if I'm not going to get any, luck of the draw from people busting up deer. I'm going to treat it as if I just have to rely on natural deer movement. And this one parking lot, it really steers everybody out a certain direction. But on the back side, there's a lot of good cover. Good thick cover. I walked down into it, lots of rubs, pretty well beat down. There's this little low bench, like the hill starts coming up, there's a low bench, and then it goes way up to the top of the hill. I wouldn't be surprised if deer just kind of filter through this area between that point and this cover behind me. It's just this low bench that's kind of the more open spot. An overlooked spot is only an overlooked spot as long as it doesn't get hunted. Just had one guy come right along the edge of that thick cover behind me, and it looks like he's coming up to sit in this little thermal hub. The sun just got behind the trees on it, so it's in the shade now, which usually triggers that thermal flip coming back down. One thought that I've had is there's a whole bunch of thick cover along creek bottom that stretches maybe like a half mile, and if the majority of guys are walking on the outside of it where it's easy walking, there could still be deer bedded in that creek bottom. So I thought of still hunting through that. Roughly 2 hours of light left. There's always the chance too that people have already walked through that. On the other hand, if I just continue to sit here, there's always the chance that that guy walking through or other guys hunting up on top could still bump deer. So when I originally was planning this hunt, I was hoping to be able to spend a little bit more days out there in the field than I ended up being able to do. Some things worked out where I basically had that weekend and I had to go back. But my goal with any kind of out-of-state first-time trip is hopefully to learn enough during that trip that if I did it a second time, I would know what to do different or feel a lot more confident going into it and have a better chance for success. And so I think with this trip in general, two of the big things that I learned were, at least where I hunted during this first shotgun season, public land pressure, just from the public land guys, was not that extreme. It seemed like any public land hunter I ran into out there was just kind of almost treating it as like a late muzzleloader hunt where they're not doing deer drives, they're not moving around a lot, they're just sitting on kind of your obvious looking spots and are either in a tree stand, saw a couple guys sitting in ladder stands, or just sitting on the ground basically in one spot. It seemed like the guys that were pushing the deer were people that were either hunting private land or accessing from private land rather than accessing from some of the public parking lots. So going back into this, I would definitely not necessarily look at the public access spots as being drivers or origination points of a lot of the pressure like I had planned on kind of going in. Now the challenge with that is, of course, you don't necessarily know who's going to drive and from what direction they're going to drive just based on looking at maps. It seems like that's something you can really only figure out kind of through experience down there. So since I've gotten back, I've talked to a few people over Messenger who've, hunted that area, and what I hear is that second shotgun might actually have more driving pressure than first shotgun. Be curious to hear your guys' thoughts as well, but certainly if that was the case, then second shotgun season might be a better opportunity for what I was trying to do than the first shotgun season was. Second thing is, I definitely would want to do a boots on the ground scouting trip down there before I went back to really try and figure out, which one of those areas and which of those places has more cover. A lot of the places I was walking through, there was just mature hardwoods and you could see a long ways. And there were certainly deer, a lot of deer sign, but compared to what I'm used to seeing in terms of better deer cover, apart from the elevation, there wasn't really a whole lot in those areas that I walked. The creek bottom seemed to have the best cover, and apart from that, it was a lot of mature hardwoods. So I would definitely want to go back looking at it from the lens of where are some of these better cover areas, whether it was an old logging area that got clear cut a while back and now it's grown up thick, just anything like that. I'm not opposed to doing it again, but I would just like to change a couple of things. So hope you guys enjoyed this video, thought it was helpful. Would like to hear your experiences if you live in Iowa or have done this similar type of a hunt, and thanks for watching.